22, day 5, sketch a discovery-driven solution concept. This is just to use everything that you have found so far to propose an early solution concept. And, this could vary, right? This could be specifically an interface. It could be a sort of implied interface within a larger context. It could be a diagram that describes a process flow. It could be really anything. And I think the trick is to think about what you're trying to communicate, like what the core value add of your proposed solution is, and think about what's the best way to articulate that. And sometimes it's going to be an illustration. Sometimes it may be an illustration that you do with photos and making a scenario that doesn't exist right now that tells the story. It could be a process flow. It could be a service blueprint. It could be wireframes, prototype, animation, really anything. But the focus is, how do I communicate this well? In this case, it says sketch a lo-fi concept or flow. And I would say lo-fi doesn't mean ugly or black and white. It just means, how do you get this done quickly and to communicate it to communicate the foundation of what you're trying to talk about in a meaningful way. And then include notes. So if you were to do an illustration of a service, you have to include notes probably elsewhere. But talk about the data insight. So what you saw in the data, what it meant to you, what your hypothesis was, and then sort of what the intended value of the solution is. And you'll see this a lot of places. One of the popular ones, I shouldn't say popular, but one of the prominent ones that's been floating around for a little while now is when Jared Spool shows, I wish I could remember the name of it, but he shows a video of from Apple of a person interacting with an information exploration device. And this would have been way before any of this technology could have come together in a meaningful way, but he's actually having a conversation with it, and it's bringing up information, and it becomes a dialogue, a verbal and visual dialogue between the person and the device. It becomes this illustration of what the future could look like. And that could be one way. From a prototype perspective, you could actually build some sort of app that communicates what an app could do, but not necessarily get too deep into the constraints and etc. That would cause someone to get distracted by viewing your solution. So think about that for a beat. Go back to day 1 through day 4 and think about conceptually what data inspired you to solve this problem, what you thought the core hypothesis was that led to you solving for it, what persona might be using it, and then some proposed solutions, and then this sort of sketch that you have. And also, use your, from yesterday, use your research questions. And so this, I put this challenge out here this week. It is a little bit challenging because it does require that you conceptually swim through something that's less precise, and a lot less precise. You are looking in the world at data for something novel to solve, and it may feel a little bit precarious at this point, but this is how we create hypotheses and evaluate them, especially in the early phases of something. So you're going to be proposing something that is interesting here, that may have a lot of implications that are difficult to work around. But at the same time, there's going to be a core message here that speaks the delivery of value. And at the end of the day, it could be that what you produced here someone may build immediately, but it could also just serve as inspiration for something else to build or something else to consider. And just know that the due diligence that you did in the previous 4 or 5 days led to this sort of meaningful outcome, and put it out there. And this is low risk. This is a weekly design exercise. put it out there, share it with folks who seem interested, and you just having gone through this should have grown as a designer, and should have been a beneficial exercise for you. If you ran into challenges or you still aren't seeing the point of this, let me know. But very, very powerful thing to be able to do, and I hope it was helpful for you. Look forward to seeing everyone's output this week, and I will see you in week 23.